I never missed a single month. $200 sent like clockwork to my late husband's mother because love does not die when people do. I believed loyalty meant something. I believed sacrifice was seen. Until one phone call shattered everything I thought I knew about family, gratitude, and respect. Her voice was cold, calculated. And what she said next made my hand start shaking so badly I had to sit down. That was the moment I realized I was not helping her. I was being used. And what happened after that changed all of our lives in ways she never saw coming. My name is Sarah Whitmore, and I was 36 years old when I finally understood that kindness can be mistaken for weakness. I had been a widow for 4 years by then. 4 years of waking up to silence. 4 years of sleeping on the edge of the bed because the other side still felt occupied by memory. 4 years of learning how to breathe again after losing the man who was my home. My husband, Daniel, died in a car accident on a rainy Tuesday morning. One moment he was sending me a voice message about picking up groceries, and the next moment a police officer was standing in front of me. His eyes heavy with words he did not want to say. The world does not pause for grief. It keeps moving while you are frozen in shock, trying to understand how a life can end between a red light and a green one. Daniel was an only child. His mother, Margaret, was all he had left of his family. She was a stern woman, proud and emotionally distant, but he loved her deeply. Before he passed, he used to send her money every month. Not because she was poor, but because he believed it was his responsibility as her son. He used to say it is not about need, it is about respect. So when he died, I continued. $200 every month. On the same date, without fail. At first, it felt like honoring him, like keeping a piece of him alive through action. It gave my grief direction. It gave my pain purpose. And it made me feel close to him in a way that nothing else could. But grief has a way of blinding you to what is really happening around you. Margaret thanked me once. Only once. It was a short message, formal, almost transactional. After that, silence, no phone calls, no check-ins. No concern for how I was surviving as a young widow trying to rebuild a life that had collapsed without warning. Still, I kept sending the money, because love does not ask for recognition. Or at least, that is what I told myself. I worked 2 jobs at the time. One during the day at a dental office, and another in the evenings at a small accounting firm. There were months when I skipped meals. Months when I paid bills late. Months when I had to choose between groceries and gas. But Margaret always received her $200. Always. There is a strange power in sacrifice. You believe it serves a higher purpose. But sacrifice becomes something darker when it is taken for granted. I lived in a small apartment with thin walls and a view of a brick building across the street. Every morning, sunlight filtered through the blinds and painted lines across the floor. And every morning I told myself I was strong enough to survive another day. I was not living. I was enduring. Margaret lived in a large suburban house Daniel had grown up in. 2 stories, garden in the front, new car in the driveway. Comfortable, stable, secure. That difference never bothered me at first. I told myself pain should not be compared. Loss is not a competition. But something about that imbalance would soon matter more than I could imagine. Every time I clicked send on that payment, I felt a strange mix of pride and exhaustion. Pride because I was honoring Daniel. Exhaustion because it felt like carrying his responsibility alone, while everyone else moved on. And then there was the way Margaret spoke to me when we did talk. Short, dismissive, as if my grief was an inconvenience. As if my existence was now only defined by what I provided. There was no warmth, no compassion. No acknowledgement that I was the woman who loved her son with everything I had. That absence of humanity should have warned me. But love makes excuses. And loyalty keeps you quiet longer than you should be. The first crack appeared during a holiday visit. I brought homemade food. She barely touched it. She spoke about renovations, about travel plans, about expenses. Not once did she ask how I was managing alone. I remember sitting on her couch, hands folded, heart pounding. realizing I felt smaller in that house than I ever had in my own tiny apartment. That was the first moment I felt invisible. But it would not be the last, because soon Margaret would show me that she did not see my generosity as kindness. She saw it as obligation, as entitlement. And once someone believes you owe them, they stop respecting you. That truth was about to cost me more than money. If you have ever given your heart, your time, or your money to someone who never truly appreciated it, then this story is for you. Before we continue, take a moment to like this video and subscribe to the channel. Because stories like this remind us that kindness should never be repaid with disrespect. And stay with me until the end, because what happens when loyalty finally meets justice is something you will not forget. The change was subtle at first. So subtle that I almost convinced myself I was imagining it. Margaret began calling more often, but not to ask how I was doing, not to check if I was coping. Her calls were always short and always focused on money. She would say things like, "The bills are rising," or "Everything costs more these days," and then pause. Just long enough for silence to become uncomfortable. Just long enough for me to feel pressured to fill it. I would apologize even when I had done nothing wrong. That was the first sign something was shifting. Soon the pauses turned into expectations. The expectations turned into demands disguised as casual comments. One afternoon she said, $200 does not go as far as it used to. Daniel would have understood that. Her words landed heavier than she probably intended. Or maybe she intended them exactly that way. Daniel would have understood. Daniel would have done more. Daniel would have tried harder. I sat on the edge of my bed, phone pressed to my ear, my heart thudding as if it sensed danger before my mind did. That was when I realized she was no longer thanking me. She was evaluating me. I still sent the same amount. I still sent it on time. But the tone had changed. Gratitude had been replaced by entitlement. And entitlement is never satisfied. Weeks later, she called again. This time her voice was sharper. "I had to postpone some things because your transfer was late." It was not late. It had been sent exactly on schedule. I checked my account while she was still talking. A timestamp confirmed it, but I apologized anyway. I do not know why. Maybe because grieving women are trained to carry guilt even when none belongs to them. Her next words felt colder. "I hope this is not going to become a habit." That was the moment my stomach tightened. Because habits form when patterns are expected. And she was beginning to expect obedience. Soon she stopped pretending. One month I received a message that simply said, "You forgot." No greeting. No context, no kindness. I had not forgotten. I sent her the receipt. She did not respond. 2 days later she replied, "Next time, send it earlier." I should not have to remind you. I stared at the screen for a long time. My hands trembled, not with fear, but with something heavier. A slow-burning awareness that I was no longer viewed as a person. I was a resource, and resources are exploited. Another month passed, another transfer, another silent confirmation. Then she began mentioning things she wanted, not needed, wanted. I might redo the kitchen. I am thinking about replacing the car. Property taxes are annoying this year. Each sentence floated casually, but each carried an invisible message. Do more, give more, prove your worth again. I started dreading her calls. My phone would light up with her name and my chest would tighten before I even answered. Because every conversation felt like a test. And I was always one wrong answer away from failing. The worst part was how she spoke about Daniel. She used his memory like leverage. Like a weapon. Daniel would not have hesitated. Daniel always took care of his responsibilities. Daniel would be disappointed if he knew. She was turning my grief into a bargaining chip. And that is when my frustration began to sharpen into something else. One evening, after a particularly difficult shift, I checked my bank account and realized I had less than $30 left for the week. Rent was due. Groceries were running out. Gas was low. But Margaret had already received her money. I sat in my car in the parking lot, gripping the steering wheel, staring straight ahead, feeling the weight of a decision I had not yet named, because I finally understood something terrifying. I was sacrificing my survival to preserve her comfort. And she did not even notice. The next call came 3 days later. She said, "I need to talk to you about increasing the amount." Need, not ask, not discuss. Need. I closed my eyes and felt something inside me shift, slow and inevitable. Like a door beginning to close that would never open the same way again. I did not answer her immediately. That alone felt like rebellion. My phone rested in my lap, screen glowing with her name, and for the first time in years, I let it ring. Each vibration felt like a challenge. Each second that passed felt like a choice. My heart was pounding, not with fear, but with clarity. Increase the amount, as if my life existed solely to fund hers. I finally answered, my voice calm in a way that surprised even me. "Margaret, I need to understand why." There was a pause. Not the thoughtful kind, the offended kind. "Because expenses rise. Because you should want to help. Because this is what family does." Family. The word felt hollow coming from her mouth. I took a slow breath. "I am already helping. I have been consistent for years." Her tone sharpened. "Consistency is not generosity. Daniel would have done more if he were alive." There it was again, his name, used like a blade. My grip tightened around the phone. My pulse roared in my ears. Part of me wanted to hang up. Another part wanted to scream. But a quieter voice, steadier and stronger, rose beneath both. I said, "Daniel trusted me. He trusted me to live, not to suffer." She laughed. It's a soft, dismissive sound. "You are being emotional." That word hit harder than any insult. Emotional. As if grief were weakness. As if pain were inconvenience. My mind raced. Years of sacrifice flashed through me like a film I had never allowed myself to watch. Late nights. Empty refrigerators. Silent apartments. Payments sent without hesitation. And still, she wanted more. I asked, "How much are you asking for?" She did not hesitate. Another $200, $400. Every month. My chest tightened so suddenly I had to lean back in my seat. My hands were cold, my thoughts were not. I saw my bank balance, my rent, my groceries, my gas tank. I saw myself disappearing, and I finally understood something that changed everything. Love that destroys you is not love, it is control. I said quietly, "I cannot do that." The silence on the other end was sharp. Then came her anger. "Do not pretend you cannot afford it. Oh, you are young. You work? You have no children. What else are you spending money on?" Her words stripped me down to numbers. No humanity. No dignity. Just capacity. Something inside me cracked. Not loudly. Not dramatically, but completely. I whispered, "My life is not disposable." She scoffed. "You owe me." That was the moment everything stopped feeling complicated. Oh, as if love were a debt. Oh. As if grief were an obligation. As if my existence were collateral. I straightened in my seat, my voice steadied. "I owe you nothing. I gave because I chose to. And now I am choosing differently." Her breath changed. I could hear the shock, the disbelief, the loss of control. "You cannot just stop," she said. "Watch me," my mind answered. But I did not say it yet, 'cause something bigger was forming. Not anger, resolve. I ended the call. The silence afterward was heavy, sacred, terrifying. I sat there for a long time, hands resting on my lap, feeling like I had stepped onto a path that could not be undone. And then my phone buzzed again. A message. "You are being selfish." Another followed. "Daniel would be ashamed." Another. "You are abandoning family." Each message was designed to pull me back, to make me small again. But instead, they did the opposite. They showed me who she truly was. And once you see someone clearly, you cannot unsee them. I did not respond. That silence became my first act of power. I did not rush. Revenge that is rushed is messy. I needed mine to be clean, precise, unavoidable first. I gathered proof, quietly, methodically. I opened every bank statement from the past 4 years and highlighted every transfer, date, amount, confirmation number. I printed them. The printer hummed softly in my apartment like it was whispering secrets. Each page sliding out felt heavier than the last. This was not just money. This was proof of loyalty, proof of sacrifice, proof of exploitation. Then I saved every message she had sent me. The demands, the accusations, the manipulation using Daniel's name. I took screenshots. I backed them up. Twice, I wanted a record she could not erase. Next, I did something she never expected. I called her bank. I asked what documentation was needed to officially label my payments as voluntary family support. Not gifts. Not loans. Support. The woman on the phone was polite, professional. You will need proof of consistent transfers and written communication. I smiled. I had both. Then I scheduled a consultation with a financial advisor. Sitting in that office, surrounded by soft lighting and calm voices, I realized how abnormal my situation truly was. When I explained everything, he did not hesitate. "You have been financially manipulated," he said. Hearing it spoken aloud was like cold water against my skin. Manipulated, not loving. Not loyal, manipulated. He helped me draft a formal notice, a letter.com, professional. Final, it stated that my voluntary support would end immediately and that any further contact demanding money would be considered harassment. No emotion. No apology. Only truth. I read it 3 times before printing. My hands shook, but my mind did not. Then came the hardest part, delivering it. I drove to her house on a quiet afternoon. The sky was gray, heavy with unshaded rain. My heartbeat echoed in my ears as I parked. The same house that once symbolized Daniel's childhood now felt like a courtroom waiting for a verdict. I walked up the steps slowly. Each footstep was deliberate. The doorbell sounded louder than it should have. She opened the door with surprise that quickly shifted into irritation. "You finally decided to show up," she said. I handed her the envelope. "Read this." She scoffed but took it. I watched her eyes move across the page, watched her posture stiffen, watched control slip from her expression like water through fingers. "You cannot be serious," she said. "I am. You think a piece of paper changes anything? Kate changes everything." Her voice rose. "After all I have done for you, this is how you repay me?" I met her gaze. "You have done nothing for me. I gave to you." The silence between us was thick. Then she tried a different angle, softer, sharper. "Daniel would never allow this." I stepped closer, not aggressively, calmly. "Daniel trusted me to know when something was wrong." Her face hardened. "You will regret this," she said. I almost believed her. Almost that night the messages began. Long, furious, desperate. I did not respond. Then the calls. I blocked the number. The next morning, I went to my bank and filed the paperwork. Officially, permanently. No more transfers. No more access. No more power. But I was not finished. I sent copies of the documentation to her extended family, not to shame, to expose, calmly, factually, for years of payments, for years of messages, for years of manipulation. I wrote one line. I gave out of love. I stopped because of abuse. Then I let the truth speak. That was when everything began to unravel for her. The phone rang from a number I did not recognize. I knew before answering, my chest tightened, but this time it was not fear. It was anticipation. I answered calmly. Her voice was no longer sharp. It was fractured. "What did you do?" I leaned back against the kitchen counter and closed my eyes. The room smelled like coffee and quiet, peaceful, Solid. I told the truth, I said. Her breathing was uneven. You had no right. My sister called me. My nephew called me. Everyone is asking questions. You embarrass me. Embarrassed, not remorseful, not ashamed of her actions, ashamed of being exposed. I said, you embarrassed yourself. The silence that followed was heavy. Then came the anger. Not controlled, not polished, raw. You turned my own family against me. No, I replied. I let them see who you have been. Her voice dropped, lower, dangerous. You think you won, but you have no idea what you have done. I smiled. She could not see it, but I felt it in my chest. A slow, steady warmth. I know exactly what I have done. I took my life back. She hung up. 2 days later, her sister showed up at my apartment. I opened the door with my heart pounding, but her expression was not hostile, was tired, regretful. She said, I am sorry it took us so long to see it. We sat at my small kitchen table, the same table where I had counted coins to buy groceries, where I had whispered apologies to myself for being tired. She told me everything. Margaret had borrowed money from multiple relatives, claiming I had stopped helping because I had become unstable. When they asked why she needed more if I had supported her for years, her stories began to contradict themselves. The screenshots I sent filled in the gaps she could not. Okay? She said you owed her, her sister said quietly, that you were irresponsible, Kate, that you were selfish. I felt a strange calm. And now, her sister looked at me steadily. Now we know who was really being selfish. Validation has a physical weight. It settles in your bones, straightens your posture, it steadies your breath. Later that week, Margaret showed up at my door. I did not expect it. When I opened the door, she looked smaller, not physically, emotionally. Her shoulders were tense, her eyes avoided mine. You ruined my reputation, she said. I did not invite her in. You built it. Her lips trembled. I just needed help. I stepped forward slightly. You wanted control? She inhaled sharply. You could fix this. You could tell them it was a misunderstanding. There it was. Not apology. Negotiation. I shook my head. I will not lie for you. Her voice broke. After everything I did for you, I held her gaze. Name one thing. She opened her mouth, closed it. Nothing came. The silence stretched. That was the moment she understood she had lost. Not money, power, control. The illusion that she mattered more than my survival. She whispered, you are cold. I replied softly, I am free. She turned and walked away without another word. I closed the door and leaned against it. My knees felt weak. My hands trembled. Tears rose, not from sadness, but from release. For the first time since Daniel died, I felt like I was standing fully inside my own life. Weeks passed, the messages stopped, the calls stopped. Her name faded into silence, and something extraordinary happened. My bank account began to grow. My refrigerator stayed full. My body felt lighter. But the greatest reward was internal. I slept through the night. I laughed without guilt. I breathed without apology. Justice does not always come with applause. Sometimes it comes with peace. And peace, after years of being used, feels like victory. I used to think karma was loud. I imagined it arriving like thunder, dramatic and undeniable. Now I know it is quieter than that. Karma does not always crash into your life. Sometimes it simply removes what was poisoning it. Sometimes justice is not about watching someone fall. It is about watching yourself finally stand without fear. What happened with Margaret did not make me cruel. It made me honest. It taught me that kindness without boundaries is an invitation for exploitation. I had confused loyalty with self-sacrifice and love with endurance. I believed that being a good person meant tolerating discomfort, disrespect, and emotional exhaustion. I thought strength was measured by how much pain I could survive quietly. I was wrong. Strength is knowing when to stop giving to someone who only takes. For years, I thought my role was to hold everyone together, even if it meant breaking myself in the process. I wore exhaustion like a badge of honor. I told myself that my suffering had meaning because it honored Daniel. But love does not demand self-destruction. Daniel loved me because I was alive, not because I was useful. He wanted me whole, not depleted. That realization was not easy. It came slowly, through nights of silence, through moments of doubt, through the uncomfortable truth that I had allowed myself to disappear for someone who never truly saw me. And that is the hardest part. Not the betrayal, not the manipulation. It is realizing you stayed longer than you should have because you believed love meant obligation. Karma did not punish Margaret with spectacle. It gave her exactly what she never valued. Accountability. She lost control. She lost credibility. She lost access to my life. And I gained something far greater. I gained my voice. I learned that generosity should be a gift, not a leash. That love should feel safe, not strategic. That family is defined by respect, not entitlement. I did not forgive her. Not because I am bitter, but because forgiveness is not required for healing. Closure does not always come from reconciliation. Sometimes it comes from distance, from clarity, from choosing yourself without apology. I no longer carry guilt for protecting my peace. I no longer apologize for having limits. I no longer confuse suffering with virtue. The day I stopped sending that money was the day I started investing in my own future. I began saving. I began planning. I began dreaming again. Small dreams at first. Stability, security, rest, then bigger ones. Travel, new beginnings. A life not defined by survival, but by possibility. There is a quiet power in knowing you survived something that tried to shrink you. And there is a deeper power in knowing you chose not to become small. If you are listening to this and recognizing yourself, hear me clearly. You are not selfish for wanting fairness. You are not cruel for demanding respect. You are not wrong for protecting your energy. You are human. Karma does not reward silence. It rewards truth. And sometimes the bravest act of justice is simply refusing to be used again. My story is not about revenge. It is about reclamation. It is about learning that your life is not a currency for someone else's comfort. It is about understanding that love should never cost you your dignity. And if there is one thing I know now, it is this. The moment you choose yourself, everything changes. You stop surviving, you start living. And no one ever gets to take that from you again. If this story made you reflect on your own boundaries, hit the like button to support stories that honor strength and self-worth. Share your thoughts in the comments and tell us about a time you chose yourself. And subscribe for more powerful stories that remind you that justice does not always roar, but it always restores.